Welcome to lesson 1 on factors and multiples. Okay, factors. So there are going to be two or more numbers that multiply to form a product. This means in a product, just so you know, is the result to a multiplication problem. Okay, this means if we're trying to find the factors of 6, we need to ask ourselves, okay, what times what equals 6? Well, we know that 1 times 6 equals 6, and 2 times 3 equals 6, okay? This means that 1, 6, 2, and 3 are all factors of 6. Let's try another one. What are the factors of 4? Well, what times what equals 4? 1 times 4 equals 4, and 2 times 2 equals 4. This means that the factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. Now notice that even though 2 times 2 equals 4, we only have to list the 2 once in the factor list, okay? So go ahead and give these a try. List all the factors of 24, 16, 36. You can pause the video now and then just press play as soon as you're ready to check your answer. All right, thanks for coming back to us. Let's go through this. All of the factors of 24. So I'm gonna start with 1 and 24. Those are factor pairs, okay? Now 24 is an even number, so I know that I can have 2, and 2 times 12 equals 24. Okay, now I need to ask myself, does 3 times something equal 24? Well, yes, it does. 3 times 8 equals 24. Now I need to ask myself, does 4 times something equal 24? And yes, it does. 4 times 6 equals 24. Now I need to ask myself, does 5 times something equal 24? And no, it doesn't. And would 6 times something equal 24? Well, I already know that 6 times 4 equals 24, so that means that my factor list is done. Now I can actually identify these as factor pairs, okay? So 4 and 6 multiplied together equals 24, 3 times 8 is 24, 2 times 12 is 24, 1 times 24 is 24. All right, let's try 16. You should have 1, you should have 2, you should have 4, you should have 8, and you should have 16. Let's try 36. This is a big one. You should have 1, you should have 2, you should have 3, you should have 4, you should have 6, you should have 9, you should have 12, you should have 18, and you should have 36, okay? Now let's talk multiples. Multiples are the product of a number and any other number, okay? So if I want to list a multiple of 3, I'm going to take any number and I'm going to multiply it by 3. So I might decide to take 5 times 3, and that equals 15. Therefore, 15 is a multiple of 3, okay? Now, for the next one, I could take 4 times any number, okay, and find out what that equals. Well, I'm going to take 4 times 25. 4 times 25 equals 100, which means that 100 is a multiple of 4. All right? So go ahead and give the following a try. List the multiples of 6, 8, and 2. Feel free to pause the video now and then come back to it as soon as you're ready to check your answers. All right, thanks for coming back to us. The multiples of 6 are 12, 18, and 24. Now for the multiples of 6, I chose to go in order, 12, 18, 24. You don't necessarily have to list them in order unless the question says to list the next 3 multiples. So for the multiples of 8, you may have chosen 64, 32, and 80, okay? Those are not in order. Okay, in order it would have been 16, 24, 32. All right, now we're gonna list the multiples of 2. I'm gonna list them in order, 4, 6, and 8. Okay, now let's talk prime numbers. Prime numbers are numbers with only 2 factors, and those factors must be the number 1 and itself. Let's look at some examples of that. The number 2 is a prime number. The number 7 is a prime number. The number 31 is a prime number. And the number 13 is a prime number. Because with each of these numbers, I can only divide it evenly by 1 in itself. I can take 2 divided by 2, okay? And I can take 2 divided by 1. Okay, I can take 7 divided by 7, so I can divide it by itself, or I can take 7 divided by 1. Same thing with 31 and same thing with 13. Now, composite numbers is the opposite. So composite numbers are every other number. And composite numbers are a number with more than 2 factors. An example of this could be 4. It could be 45. It could be 64. It could be 224. Okay? All of these are divisible by more than just 1 and itself. I can take 4 and I can divide it by 2. I can take 45 and divide it by 5. I can take 64 and divide it by 8 or 2 or 4. Okay, so all of those are composite numbers. At this time, feel free to see your teacher if you have any questions. All right, and check in with your teacher to find out what your next activity is before you start the homework.